Hello everyone. If you're watching right now, I don't know how many people have come in, but start putting your name and we get so that we get to know each other. So put your name, put what you're doing, what is your research topic, where are you from, which country, which university. We would love to know that. Hello everyone. If you're you have already joined, just put your name, say hi and hello to each other.
Yeah, sir, can you go above and check the views and select the gallery view so we all are together on one screen and not when one speaking and not others speak. So like the
Sure.
audience will be able to see us all together. It will be fun.
Gallery view. Is this okay?
Let me check.
Yeah, so we'll wait for maybe a few more minutes, maybe 3, 4 more minutes, and we'll start today's session. Today's session is going to be a little bit different. Uh, and what we are going to do today is we are going to talk about why we started this. What was the motivation? Why at all did we think that this was something that would give meaning to our life? This was something that is important for us, and what motivated all of us to stay together and embark on this very, very challenging journey.
Yeah, and today is a like very special day for all of us who are in
Yes.
India. And yeah, like today is a Diwali, and you some of you might hear some firecrackers burning up in the
Yeah,
background noise.
so a very
So
happy Diwali on behalf of Rax team.
Diwali, guys.
And people, just to let if you can let people know from for our friends who are not from India,
mhm.
what very briefly what Diwali is about, maybe
Right,
in
sure. I love to. I love to. So Diwali is basically we call it a festival of lights because if you are in India right now, all I can see around my place is everywhere diyas burning up. Okay, every people have lightened up their galleries where with the fancy lights, and there are crackers burning up. So it's basically celebrated as a comeback return of Lord Rama to Ayodhya after being 14 years apart from his homeland and defeating one of the greatest, mightiest king in the south. And when he came back, it's called the victory over the darkness. And that's why all the people of Ayodhya lighten up the diyas in front of their house, considering the victory.
right.
And that's what it's called Diwali, the festival of lights. So that's today in India.
Yeah, it's one of the most important and mm, most celebrated festival in India.
Right. And today's topics are going to be very, very interesting, because today we are not going to talk about how to do research and research struggles. Today's topic would be around why the Rex exist in the first place and why we are doing this. Okay, and today we are going to take you all on a very interesting journey
Right.
where we'll discuss about a lot of ups and downs, about the inceptions and whatnot, about the
Yeah.
great stories that
Yeah,
we
why,
have been.
and you will get to know why this is a very challenging journey for us, but at the same time why this is a fun journey for us at the same time.
I think today's session would be more about uh, not how to do research, like how to take risk, I guess.
Yeah, how to and also when you're really passionate about giving something back to the researchers, and
Yeah.
why that how that passion can actually drive you to a very crazy limit, that where you can actually leave everything and say that, okay, all right, let's do something for this community, so let's try to give something back to this community. Hi,
Yeah,
Andrujal. All
and
right.
especially
Yeah.
it's a good day to start. I think we'll be talking more about interesting use cases and stories day by day, but today is about the
Yes.
journey. So yeah, so we're gonna write. I think it's right time to start in,
Right. Right.
right?
Right.
So yeah, so we'll start with one of the very interesting questions that people are interested to know about. Okay, that's you, Professor Sourish. How you as a researcher, you know,
Right.
initiated this thing, and we will be more than happy to know how it was started. What were your research, theme? What were you into, and where were
Right.
you at the time this idea popped up in your head?
Right. So what was going on, right? When I was this actually started way back when I was in the later stage of my PhD, when I was doing my PhD in computer science in the University of Missouri, Kansas City. That's in the United States, and I was kind of trying to wrap up, and my thesis was some 350 pages long, and it
Mm-hmm.
was really really long, a lot of different things that was there that included my thesis. And there were a lot of work that I did over the last six and a half years, and it became so difficult for me to compile all the little details and to thread them together, to connect them together to make a very nice thesis. And that was the time when I realized, is there something out there that can actually help me in connecting the dots? That's where my obsession started for connecting the dots, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very selfish, extremely selfish sort of obsession. I was only thinking about myself. I wasn't really interested in how I can be useful to the community as a whole. But then soon enough I realized, after completing my PhD, and when I joined DAIICT as an assistant professor, and when I started mentoring research students myself, and then I suddenly realized that it's a way bigger pain, a much intense pain uh, than what I initially thought, and I figured out that there is something about research that although there are lovely productivity tools out there, but there's something about this space that nobody is really touching.
Mm-hmm.
Probably nobody is I thought that nobody is really interested in touching this field, this
Right.
particular space. And that space was uh, essentially where you always need to connect and compare and contrast your research as you are while you are doing literature review, while you are doing research, and as you always would like to identify the gaps, the research gaps
Right.
all the time. And
So while you're doing
yeah,
this in the back in the university and early PhD days, did you try to see that is it happening to only me or is it happening everywhere? Like, did you notice that?
yeah,
The-
yeah. So I initially thought that it was just me, and
Mhm.
I was not able to cope it up. But I looked around and looked into other what my friends were doing in other labs. I started talking to a lot of people, and I was at the same time also dating my wife, and she was doing her PhD, in University of Florida in biochemistry, and
Mhm.
she was telling the same thing, and then I realized that, well, it's not just me, I'm not like the only single stupid person, who is not able to cope up with this thing. So it's a very, very pandemic sort of a issue across the globe. And I realized that this is a very intense problem. It has nothing to do with whether you are in MIT or Stanford or in some other university. Because we are constantly fighting with these three things, Ketu. We are
Right.
constantly fighting with time, we are fighting with volume, and we are fighting with memory, our own memory. So we always have a time crunch, and there's so much to read because the volume of publication is really enormous. There's
Right.
so much
There is
details
so
out
much
there.
coming information every day.
Right.
We talked
Every
about in
day.
our
And it's
previous
not just
sessions.
about information, but it's
Yeah.
when it comes to research information, it takes a lot more time to consume that and to assimilate that and to build on top of it.
It's kind
So,
of
and then it's mind blowing,
knowledge.
Shreyash.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing. And then when it comes to remembering the details, at the detail level, because you really have to remember the details if you want to do research, that is just simply not possible humanly. And that's where I decided that we need to do something about it. So that was kind of like the starting point. But again, something very interesting happened, Ketu. I initially did not really think about research for the academic research, like
Okay.
PhD
Okay.
students and all. I
Mhm.
initially thought that let's attack this greater problem of creativity,
Oh, okay. That's
creativity and
interesting.
innovation. Yeah,
That's
because
completely different of how we are doing
right,
today. Right.
right. So I felt that you have to do research even if you want to be creative in your own kitchen. Let's say you want to do a really creative, make a
Right.
really creative dish. So
Exactly.
you have to do research for that as well. So anybody and everybody who wants to be creative and who wants to be productive needs to do some sort of research. They need
Right.
to go deeper down into what other people have done and then come up with interesting innovations, right? So that was a time point where we decided, can we build something which will help people to ideate, to come up with new ideas and new creative ways of doing things. And I was primarily focusing on, young kids like undergrads and all. So that was kind of like the primary thing. That's how we started actually.
So
And
Yeah.
yeah.
And when you say we, who were your early team? Who were the people who you started discussing these ideas and try to
So
prototype
there's
them?
one person who is already with us today, who is Shreyash. And Shreyash was my student at that time in
Oh,
undergrad, one of the undergrad students. We had many other undergrad students. And Shreyash, if you can remember, we got a good go down,
yeah.
like a storeroom from the university. And we used to like sit on the floor, and they were, somehow cleared up a little bit of space in that storeroom. And then we used to start working day in, day out, all of us together. And it was summertime, really, really hot over here. And then we had to buy an AC also. So I just bought an AC, and the boys were also charged up to do something, and we started doing everything
mhm.
from scratch. And it was more about exploration, and we never had that idea of, okay, so we were not really serious about, oh, okay, so let's form a startup in the serious sense of the startup. We were just figuring out whether we are cut out for that or not.
Right. Uh,
Started more as a kind of a project.
Right.
right.
I was like, okay, this professor is onto something. Like let's work with him, and like to kind of where the journey came from, all the creativity part is like how do you constantly convert that information flow into knowledge.
Right,
If information is not knowledge, then it's a kind of a problem, and that what emerged
Right.
out after so many, I guess, years of
right,
discussion.
right.
Shreyas, so I just want to point out something. You were not doing a solid research sort of thing, right? Like an academic research.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah.
so what put you in this process? Like, okay, this is interesting. I'm gonna do it because it's completely sort of two different planets that
Yeah,
you were on. And
and
how did it merge?
I'll
What's the story?
be very honest about it. So in my BTech times, I used to think like, oh, PhD is like definitely not my cup of tea. Like this is something so difficult, and I don't know why people do it at all. So that's what I used to think in BTech. But then I met Sourish sir, and we had a lot of discussion around like what this entire thing is about. Like why work so hard to kind of build this thing, right? Then I slowly realized that it's not just about doing PhD. Even if I have to do creativity in my own design, graphic design or
Right,
interaction design, I still need to convert information into knowledge very efficiently. And that kind of idea struck me that okay, this mission is more than just about PhD. So
right.
that's how like I could connect to it. And I'm glad I did.
That's interesting. That's very interesting, actually. So sorry if I ask you,
Mhm.
like at the early days, it was just a creativity tool, okay, where the people or the researchers could come together, put the information together, and try to make some creative sense out of it. Okay,
Yeah,
so
and by the way, just to make you understand, it's not just researchers. Even the very first platform which we released, I will see even moms coming up and talking about their recipes.
oh, that's very
Yeah,
interesting.
writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yes.
So when you say researcher, okay, what do you mean? Like, what does the term researcher mean to you?
Okay, so for me, research is again read and search. So it's going back to what other people have done, other creative people, innovative people have worked in terms
Mhm.
of what they have investigated. And when I say research, it's not just about creativity, but it's also about the whatever creative thing you are doing or whatever innovative or whatever new or original thing you are bringing up, that has to be backed up by data, right? Evidences or
Right.
support, some sort of support. So that is
Mhm.
where a normal creativity would differ from a research creativity, right?
Okay.
So you really have to have a systematic way of proving your point. So
Mhm.
you have a point to prove that is there, okay, or
Right.
you have something to show to the world, that's something which you think is new, but you have to prove that. You have to
Mhm.
prove that, yeah, it is standing on some solid basis
Right.
which is acceptable by the community, by your community,
So, so,
right?
so, so so would you say that mom or researcher who came on early on the earlier platform who used to talk about making new recipe, would that be a researcher?
I would say to some extent, yes. In the sense, I mean, if there is a new innovation going on, which is built on certain principles of culinary discipline. Culinary itself is a discipline, so which is based
Mhm.
on certain principles, right?
Right.
And if that is happening, whatever new things are coming up is not just some whimsical mix and match of ingredients, but actually it has a particular science. Essentially,
Right.
it's not just an art.
Mhm.
Cooking is not just an art; it's a science as well.
Right.
So definitely, there's a huge deal of investigation, that a huge deal of
Mhm.
research that particular person has to do
Right.
in order to come up with something,
Mhm.
right? What goes well with what? What happens to the flavor profile if two things mixes up
Right.
together, right? So
Mhm.
that's an investigation. That's a serious
Right.
investigation.
So yeah, so starting from your early setup, which you said that you were in a university and you had a complete different idea about how you want to build things. Okay,
Right.
can you tell me about the drop off point where you think, okay, maybe there is something more to this. Maybe we need to evolve. Okay, did you talk to community people where you get to get new ideas, or what jolted you to build something which is Rex today? Okay,
Okay,
what is the key
so
differences and
I'll tell you something. Something happened, in a very different way. While I was developing this thing, what I felt was that the original bigger journey was to actually build something which would help people to become more creative. But then slowly I realized is that in order to trigger the particular spots in your brain which actually starts the creative process, it's a lot bigger problem. It's a lot more difficult problem, and it requires our own research in that field, because it's essentially playing with the psychology of the user, right? So it's a deeper problem. It's a lot deeper problem. So that's number one. Number two is that since you would not be able to go that deep, uh, you would soon realize, and we started realizing, is that most of the ideas that people were writing on the platform, because it was primarily a writing platform at that time. So most of the ideas that people were writing on the platform were essentially shower ideas, which means that, while you're taking a shower, you get some crazy ideas and you might want to put that over there, but you are not very attached to that idea. You know, you're not very deeply attached with that idea, which means you very easily let that idea go away, right? So that is another thing that was happening. The third problem that I felt was that most people do not want to be creative. It's not that there is a very strong urge that we have to be creative or something like that. So most people, most people do not want to be creative in that way. So then I realized that, hey, why don't we do something? Why don't we start with that community who has to be creative in their own way, because that's their profession. you know that's what they are meant to do.
right,
And
right,
that is where I felt that, hey, why not just narrow down the scope of the problem a little bit for the time being, and first solve the first problem, which is, first try to make all those people happy, for whom research and innovation is their job. They're supposed to do that as a profession. So that would be researchers. And that's how I narrowed down to the research community. And I said that, and that's where Rack started coming in. And then I told myself, and we discussed it a lot, Shreyash, me, and many other people at that time, that most of the time, when you're doing research, right, research is not it's very different than how you would do note taking on a note taking platform, because most of the time when you do research, it's primarily about reading a lot of other people's work and then thinking, and then while you are thinking, you might jot down ideas, right? You might jot
right.
down certain points, but the amount of reading that you would be doing is way higher than the amount of writing, because when you actually start writing something, that
Right.
would be when you are trying to submit a paper. And how many number of times would you actually do that? Maybe 3 times a year, maybe 4 times a year, and that is right. So we
Right.
thought that the in between note taking is tightly connected with literature survey and literature review,
Okay.
right? So that's where we shifted the epicenter, and we said that everything should start from literature analysis.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So whether it is drafting or
I know
writing.
that today we are extremely focused on getting views from the community, understanding the real problem,
Right.
and try to put them in a form that they find it fun. How important was the community in this transformation journey that you're talking about? That how many people did you talk to, and what was the initial friction from the community that about this
No, I
kind of
think
technology?
Shreyash can, say a little bit, because
Right.
apart from me, Shreyash was the other
Yeah.
one person who
Absolutely.
had a lot of interactions. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, sure. So yeah, you being the product manager, how important was it to transform that whole journey into something new?
Okay, so the product management part, like, let's keep it aside. It's a tag, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
From the start, it has always been like this kid trying to understand how these PhD students are able to uh, keep up with so much. It's like what motivates them,
Mm-hmm.
and what excites them. Why
Right.
why they are doing this in the first place? Like uh, why they choose their topic and why they want to work so hard onto it. So I have been meeting students, me and Sourish sir both. We we thought like, okay, if we want to build something like a platform to kind of for knowledge creation, then we need to understand the people who are like very disciplinary on that track. They are
Mm-hmm.
constantly trying to achieve that thing. And we realize that some of the biggest issues are for like memory retention, as Sorisha said, like that is one of the key problems that people face. No matter how smart you are, you kind of tend to forget the information, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the second thing that came out, and this is not just us sitting in the lab just thinking that okay, this is
Mm-hmm.
some kind of problem, and yeah, we have this AI background and let's use to solve it. It's not like that. So it was every day talking with PhD students, going into their labs, meeting their advisors, because there is this ecosystem. It's not just like students alone, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's the idea have been already always behind Rex, that advisor and student pair is like the environment that we need to address. And it also came with by talking to professors, that what is the gap between them and the students. So there were a lot of
Mm-hmm.
insights coming from the community, and I think that's the best way to kind of make any solution. Like without them, it doesn't make sense that we try to solve something. So we have
Mm-hmm.
always gotten a very strong feedback from the students and advisors.
Oh, right.
Right, and not to mention my extensive travel in different parts of the United
Yes,
States,
yes.
talking to all sorts of students from all sorts of disciplines,
Mm-hmm.
and talking to all sorts of professors from all sorts of disciplines, right?
Right.
That's also we made sure that we are not just talking to computer scientists, or we are not just talking to engineering discipline people. We talk to so many different people. We talk to people from humanities, we talk to people from social sciences,
Right.
philosophy, so many different people, and everybody helped us in some way or the other in trying to get a much better,
Mm-hmm.
much deeper understanding of
Right.
what essentially blocks. What are the blocks? When
Mm-hmm.
people are actually trying to do research.
Right. Uh,
Yeah.
can you give me just one example of something that was in a chat and now it's one of the features inside Rex,
Oh
and
yeah.
what was the trigger point of that?
Oh yeah, definitely, Suresh. If you can
Yeah.
remember, one
So
day we went to Professor
yes.
Madhumita Mazumdar's office. So Professor Madhumita Mazumdar is a professor in cultural history and history of science, and
Mm-hmm.
she is a professor at DAIICT, and that's in India. And while we were discussing the proto, or even the pre-proto,
Mhm.
not even the
Yes.
proto, but the pre-proto of what Rax is today. And we were showing her some mock-ups, and she suddenly told me that, Sourish, you know what? The major problem for many students is that they don't even know how to read a paper properly.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So forget about giving. So it doesn't matter how many good papers you keep giving them, but if they don't know how to consume that paper properly, then
Mhm.
it is of no use, right? So because that will keep piling up. So even if I give them the best of best papers, Ketul, if I keep giving you, but you are not able to consume that very properly
Right.
in a systematic manner, it will keep piling up, right? So then we realized, you know what? Like the big problem is actually over there.
Mhm.
The big problem is not in suggesting top papers,
Right.
and that's where we came up with this idea, together with a lot of discussion from Professor Mazumdar, that the feature that we have, which is critique
Mm-hmm.
template. So if you look into Rax, you will see that while you upload a paper, and then along with the paper on the tab, you have critique, and you in the critique you have some questions which are pre-populated, which helps a student to do much better structured note taking, which also helps a student to understand what should be the right research questions to ask. And that can be customized so that we also got to understand from while talking to many other professors, and that those questions would also become more detailed depending upon which research area you are in. So like if you are in design, then the questions will be even deeper, or even if you are in biological sciences, then the questions will be different, and so on. And that's why we felt that, okay, this has to be done in a way so that people can actually put their own, also should be edited, which means people should be able to put their own questions, and they should be able to share it and discuss and form a discussion thread on top of that, and so on and so forth. And every single discussion thread and every single thing is all recorded in a nice way, organized in a nice way. So that was
that was the inception of literature critique.
Right.
And just to add to the point that Sourish sir mentioned, like this is where the research workflow part comes in, right? So it's a real life example. Like this is something that, so we talk with students from all the years. It is very important that we cover first year, second year, third year, and last year PhD students, because the way they consume information, the way the problems they are facing keeps on changing as they grow up, as they evolve into the topic. So this is very first step where professor kind of uh, tells hey, these are the questions that you must understand from the paper, right? So it's kind of mimicking that real life kind of workflow environment setup, right? Into a more accessible and more uh, available platform medium. And that's what, like, that's how Rex is kind of constantly trying to improve the research work.
And it's completely user behavior research driven. It completely based upon the community, what the community tells us. And that's why I keep telling a lot of people to join Discord and to keep telling us what should be Rax. You guys tell us what should be Rax, and we will build that. So that's how it should be.
Right. So when I'll come to that part about the philosophy of mimicking real life situations with a digital platform. But my question is to Sourish right now about when he was doing research. Okay, at the time there were a lot of tools available in the market.
Right.
So I think you were using some of those.
Yeah, I started using a reference manager EndNote.
Right.
When I was a PhD student.
And at the same time, you felt that there is something more that needs researchers in the process of making it more fun, lively, better, and I think a little bit faster as well, right? So so that's when I think the main idea of it's coming down to that we need a literature analysis and survey too, something that helps in the researcher's everyday life. So when we talk about everyday life of a researcher, okay, there are tons of things that he does. Okay, starting from choosing a paper, reading it, discussing with the colleagues or anything. Now, doing it digitally, okay, it's something, complete new way of thinking, because currently more researchers are used to reading it on a physical note taking. They take physical notes, they discuss out, and there are 3-4 copies of a paper that goes one by one when they answer sort of things. So I just wanted to understand how we want to make it more fun when it comes to digital, because not more people are used to it. So how is the user behavior transformation process we take on?
Right. So so one thing before answering that question, a lot of people tell me that, hey, you guys are a AI startup, and I personally I love to say that it's actually a design startup. Because the question that you just said is actually the crux. I'll tell you something. The entire point is all about user experience. So when you're reading a particular paper on Rax, how wow is that experience, is that reading experience. I mean, imagine when Kindle came out in the market, and suddenly it became so viral, and suddenly it became so much, and because of that paper based reading and something like that, right? And that entire experience of reading a novel or a book or something on Kindle was wow, right? For the first time, right?
Right,
That
right.
happened. So and that's why I'm saying that each and every single thing, even the way you are reading a paper, it's a journey, and the journey is not yet completed and in ranks, and there's a lot more magic to come as to what happens. And also that reading process has to be a guided reading process, right? It cannot be like in the sense that it has to be more immersive, it has to be more interactive. Like rack should be guiding me to figure out, okay, if I'm reading this paragraph, then how this paragraph is connected to the other paragraph maybe 2 pages later down that page. So let's say that I'm reading a paper which is 10 pages or 20 pages, and if I'm on the fifth page, so how the content in the fifth page is related to the content in the 15th page.
Okay.
Now, what happens right now is that, if you do it on a hard copy, what happens? You go to the 15th page, and again you come to the fifth page, and again you try to compare this page and that page, and you take some notes on the
Right,
fifth
right.
page and
Yeah.
take some notes on the 15th page, and then the notes all starts getting scattered because the notes are not connected. So how can you make that entire experience of putting your notes down and connecting the pages together? How can you make that amazing? So that's the quest, that's the journey when it comes to reading paper. And it's not just about, okay, I'm reading a PDF and I'm just able to highlight something or taking some sticky notes or it's not just about that, right? It's all about connecting the pieces, connecting
Right.
the blocks of information that you are reading, and how you connect that to other pieces, other blocks of information. So it's always about that. And the moment you get that experience, then you understand very clearly that it's just not possible you do it in the hard copy way.
Right, right.
It's just not possible, right? It's just not possible. It's impossible. And that's where you start developing together with the UX, together with that experience. If that also comes in, then you start developing a love for what you're reading. It
Right.
becomes pleasurable,
Mhm.
right?
Right. And this is to audience as well. And if you have any questions or you like to know some stories about us,
Right.
you can put your question in the chat and we can take on. And I suggest it's time we get some hard questions in the chat, the things you would like to know about. But yeah, since we're talking about this journey is about 2.5 years long, yeah, since we started out. And when we talk about the journey is full of a lot of turns and twists. We talked about the turns that you started with the creativity enhancing
Right.
tool to today data analysis or virtual. Now this is to Shreyas and you both. Can you point out one good story, okay, which like made you fulfilling, okay, like okay, I am on the right track, and and when we're doing it, some negative feedback or some I won't say some negative, but some you faced some hard reality, something
Right.
hit on the face, and that's a wake up call or something.
Yeah.
So you each can share a single story if you have, or different
Mm-hmm.
stories. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
Shreyas, yeah, you would like to go on?
yeah. So I have one really personal story about this aspect. So uh, see, we are not like serial entrepreneurs, right? Like
Right.
we are not like business tycoons who have built companies before. So here is a very simple professor and his very simple students. So uh, when we start something like this, there is a lot of harsh reality that we have to face, right? Not everyone is going to like your idea. Not everyone liked the first I would like first Dropbox. Not everyone liked first Google or anything like that, right? There will be always be people who kind of don't resonate with what you are doing. But and we struggled, I personally struggled a lot that okay, I'm putting this 1.5 year into this thing, and is it adding value to someone, right?
Right.
Otherwise it's just not worth doing it if it's not adding value. And then we got this feedback from, I saw this feedback from one of the students in UMKC. So I have never met him, right? So I don't know as in him as a friend. And he tells this, Rex kind of bridges this gap between uh, advisor and a student. So it's like if the advisor is very busy, and that happens a lot of time, so students don't get enough support system to kind of, the young students especially don't get support system to start off. And he said that Rex kind of bridges this gap, by helping me to, guiding me to how to read properly. That's one of the problem we discuss. And getting that feedback was something that told me that, okay, we are on the right track. Let's keep pushing, and I think more people will find it useful and connect with it. So this is something I have been inspired out of, to keep going.
Right. And something that hit you in the face. If
Yeah.
there's any story, like, you
Oh.
felt you're completely thinking wrong about it.
uh, yeah, I think there is a lot of professors told us that, this is not how you do research. You can't do research on a digital platform. So I don't blame them. This is out, like, I totally respect them, their method and their approach. But this is something that you have to absorb, that okay, not everyone is going to adopt the kind of solution right away. It will take some
Right.
time for them to grab,
Yeah.
understand it, and then start developing liking for it, right? So
Mhm.
that was one of the harsh
Yeah,
reality
we,
for
we
me.
we never thought that we would be working in this COVID situation. We never thought we would be working like this.
Right.
We never thought we are even able as human
Mhm.
beings to work like this. So we found our new strength, so to say.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. It just came like no one anticipated it. Okay. And no one thought how real it would be. But here we are. Like, when the times we were not able to connect, we have found a way to talk to people. Okay. We have to found a way to communicate. We have found to be human in a different manner, in a digital area. So yes, sorry, it's coming to the question. Can you share
Right.
your personal story where you feel like,
Yeah.
oh, this is amazing, or you feel,
See,
wow.
for me, the surprises, the pleasant feedback, what you say, the surprises, that doesn't surprise me very well, because I am in this community for the last 14 years, right? So I already had hypotheses that were based on data, uh, of course, and at least at a qualitative level, if not at a quantitative level, the way we do right now. But at least I knew that, okay, if somebody is saying good things about what I am thinking, the way I am thinking and conceptualizing Rax, it's validating my thing. It's not really coming as a surprise, because I knew that, because even before starting Rax, we used to discuss all these things.
Right.
Right. So even when there was no racks, we used to discuss all these things. So I knew what the issues were. However, for me, what really happened was when negative feedback would come in, and one of the interesting negative feedback that came from a few people, especially from professors, is that students should do the work the hard way, because we work the hard way. And since we work the hard way, PhD is not a joke, and students should actually take that ordeal, go through that
Right.
ordeal, and things should not be easy for them. Right. So that's one criticism. The other criticism that I got was something which is very interesting, was that, are you going, if you are trying to make the AI do the research, then that's not a good thing to do ethically, because then you are making people lazy, essentially. So essentially that's not really the, or never was the goal. The goal, and as what Rax suggests, Rax is always an assistant. It's actually the assistant, it's actually the personal secretary for the researcher. Rax is never going to be the researcher itself. So that's another kind of a thing. And the third kind of criticism that kind of comes up, even now, is where people, there are a group of people who would think that, because we actually design, the way we design racks is by following the research methodologies, like how actually research methodology works. But then there are certain researchers who come from certain kind of disciplines, and they do not believe in the philosophy of research methodology. So they
Right.
feel that research is not methodical, and they come from that school of thinking that research is not methodical and research just happens ad hoc, and all of a sudden, like Archimedes, you're bathing on the bathtub and you suddenly get that idea and
Eureka, eureka.
eureka, right? So
Right.
so that's this other school of thought, and they feel that it is too templated, sort of. You cannot structure research and make people think better, through a tool,
Right, right.
guide people through a tool. Yeah, so that was
And
always kind of
Mhm.
and
Yeah, sure.
the good thing is that that criticism has always kind of motivated us to
yeah,
build the application that is kind of gives you the freedom to get your own structure, like
right,
we don't want to impose any method, any template to you. We just
Right.
facilitate to create kind of your own method, right?
Mhm.
But just like some guided way to speed up things so that you
Right.
don't waste time.
so a balance, that's where we always try to make sure that there has to be a balance between, on the one hand, you have the extreme messiness that,
Right.
we leave it on you, then there's no purpose of actually making racks.
Mm.
And on the other hand, too tight, where you cannot work around according to your own uh, discipline, research
Right.
discipline. And that was one of
Mhm.
the dangers always, because there was always this danger of me trying to impose how computer scientists do research.
Right. Right.
And that
Absolutely. Yeah.
that was always there, which I always had to counter, through proper UBR and through proper talking with multiple different types of people, what they feel about it, and so on and so forth.
Right. Right. So it's basically like we have given the right components to do the research. Now, how you use them in what manner, how you stored the information inside, that's up to you. Okay, you
Right,
can take this component and make a complete different structure of workspace. For a computer science, it would be different. For a historian, would be different.
right,
For a
right,
astrophysicist, would be different. So that's an interesting way to look at it.
right,
Uh,
right.
we have a question from
Yeah.
Vidyasagar. So
Mhm.
he said, and Vidyasagar is one of the old members who has joined us for Saturdays with Stories for a very long time,
Oh,
and he has
happy to
asked,
have you here.
yeah, and he has asked a very good question. He said, how Rex changing their search options day by day, from the evolution of Rex in the starting months or a year. Is there any option to use make more advanced searches than earlier months? And to put it more simply, I would like to understand, how it is different from researchers making searches outside than inside, and how we have evolved to make that searches more better. Okay.
So maybe Shreyash is the best person to
Right.
go for this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So, see, my background is not AI and NLP,
Right.
but since I can understand this aspect of how the search has advanced, over the from the starting days where we were, this idea was just a prototype
proto.
till
Yeah,
now. Uh, it's a lot more about like making machines understand more meaning of what people are doing. So uh, not to like just get the meaning, but to always stay on track to assist them. So usually what we do, like if I have to start a kind of a search or knowledge about new topic, I would just google it on google the topic, talk to my advisor, right, and get some information from him, some starting points, books or papers or something like that. And whenever we are reading something, we if we don't understand it properly, usually we stop reading and then we kind of jump to another search engine or something like that and try to figure stuff out, and that's where we kind of get lost, I think.
Mhm.
So Rex was initially about was it was just about understanding the paper, right? Then slowly, the algorithm has been modified to understand the paper as well as the reader's interaction with it. So that's where the lot of deep meanings come, right? You have to understand that uh, just two sentences having similar words doesn't mean that, like, they are same.
Mhm.
And
right,
differentiating that in a research paper is actually a lot complex task. You don't have just two sentences. You have like this bunch of lots of paragraph, and there are hundreds of paper like that. And now you have to connect, find similar meanings from
Right.
every paper, as well as what users are doing. So uh, this is the advancement in terms of what it matters to the users, right? Or in a layman's term, I think to give it more of a technical depth, I think, sorry sir, if you can just
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
go
Right.
more
and
about.
and coming to that, we have a continuation question from Vidyasagar. He says,
Yeah. I,
yeah, can Rex able to provide alternative options to Boolean search?
right. Right.
And
I'll come to both the questions.
right.
Yes. So to continue with what Suresh said is to give more details, like each and every single by interaction. What we mean is that even if you do a little bit of highlight somewhere or put some notes, sticky notes somewhere, or what kind of papers you are when you do select and explore, when you select a certain paragraph, and then when you go and hit on related papers, and when all the papers come up on the right hand side, and when you attach those papers onto that particular paragraph, what papers did you attach? Are the papers similar to each other? Are the papers different than each other? And how your interest in terms of topics are changing over time, right? As you're reading different paragraphs, and also as you're crossing from one paper to the other paper, and how quickly you are doing that, how quickly that change is happening. Are you trying to focus more on the key aspects of the paper right now, or are you trying to focus more on the peripheral or the background aspects of the paper right now? So Rax is constantly trying to understand the context, behind what essentially you're selecting. So that's a very important point to understand about the searches that or rather the select and explore that you are doing in Rax. Now, coming to the second point of Boolean options and all. So I want to tell you something that you have, when you look into, I know from where Vidya is coming from. If you go to a standard discovery engine, right, and you will, let's say that any publisher discovery engine, or maybe any kind of other kind of discovery engine, I mean, you will see that there is all sorts of what they call as advanced. You will see that you can actually put the keywords in multiple different combinations. You can say
Right.
that, okay, I put keyword number 1 and keyword number 2 and keyword number 3 in terms of an and then I would put keyword number 4 in terms of an or. So this is like what you call as a Boolean expression, and you have to create every time. If you're not getting what you want, you have to start and go and create a Boolean expression all the time.
Right.
Now, that's perfectly fine. If you want to do that, but go to a discovery engine to do that. But the difference between that kind of stuff and what's happening in Rax is Rax doesn't look into the keywords. Rax looks into the idea which you are selecting when you are doing a select and explore. So let's say you select a particular paragraph and you explore more papers. So Rax is trying to understand what is the overall idea of that selected paragraph, right? And it has nothing to do with or and what is and what is or, because in some paragraphs, certain keywords or concepts, rather, we look at it more from a concept point of view. We also look at it how the concepts are related to each other, and that relation will determine whether they should be in an and, or whether they should be in an or whether they should not be even taken. So we also look into the, what are the concepts that should not even be considered in this particular query, right? And also we look into what are your choices, and we remember the choices, which also enables us to figure out, okay, what are those results which are more important to you, because for me they may not be useful, right? So I may select something else, for the same query. You may select something else with there for the same query. right? So it actually personalizes in that way, and that is where it becomes your personal secretary. Because Rax behaves in a different way for me, and it behaves in a different way for you, depending upon what is more useful and what is more interesting to you, right? So that is why we don't really have that concept of forming Boolean queries, because whatever you are doing, we are able to understand the context in a much deeper sense, and we know what to do over there, instead of you always having to write a Boolean query all the time, right? And so that is one thing. And as you can see, it's all about, while you are reading a paper, you want to explore more papers. So essentially, that concept of going to a Google Scholar or to different thing and typing a few keywords, 2-3 keywords, that's not really the concept, because you cannot express an idea by only typing 2-3 keywords, right? You have to have a whole paragraph to express an idea. What exactly is that idea? What exactly is this point that is made in that paper, in that paragraph, rather? Right. And also one more interesting thing is, we also look into what kind of citations are getting done in that nearby zone of that paragraph, which means what is the author thinking about which citations are more important when the author is writing that paragraph. And that is also extremely important for us.
Right. I shared with you the link of how this can explore happening inside the racks, so he'll have an understanding of how exactly the context is going. Yes, and the best way to do it is compare the result you want to get into two different platforms and see for yourself which is easy and which is more accurate. Now I think we are coming to the end, and we have one more question to take, and it's coming from Nurjal Sharma. He asked, were there situations where you felt like this wasn't working or not moving forward as fast as you wanted? Any kind of a setback, if I speak in general, and how did you handle those situations? So if you have just one, I think we can, something that put you in a lot of disappointment, and you thought, okay, maybe you were in doubt. Okay, what was that situation? So
every day. Every day we feel that we are not moving as fast as we should. So yeah, but yeah, there have been couple of major situations where we were in that a delicate spot. And so when the first instance would be like when we were the idea guide kind of platform, right? And we saw that a lot of people are putting their ideas, and some of them come back to get some recommendations, but they were not coming back. So we were kind of waiting that we are doing everything right, and still people are not able to come back. And that's where one of the biggest, I guess, pivot came in. That's where we actually focused on the research workflow. We have to give some constraint to ourselves to in order to produce something concrete. So but behind that as well, like uh, behind that setback and the motivation to cross it, was that we have to be valuable to this community. So if that idea didn't work, that's we have to focus more on the really important problems and try to kind of use this technology and our whatever assets we have at hand to solve that, the design to solve that, right? And that's what researchers do, I guess, and that's the good thing. if, even in any student in any lab, if they don't get like kind of success or progress in their problem, they'll try some other solution. So I think adding value, being valuable for all these years, was something that kept us going from that situation.
Right. I personally always believe that there is always a way. It's just that we are not able to see that. That's number one. And number two is that I love, in a very weird way, I love setbacks, because it challenges me more than the success. And for me, I always feel that it inspires me to keep going, actually. That I will show myself, not to anybody else, but I can actually overcome the setback. So that's how I am wired, actually. And then another thing that is for me, what really works very well is that uh, I don't think too much about a setback. The next day, the next morning, I just immediately try to I can actually focus on what I have to do next morning, and I really don't think about the setbacks. So I don't have a very good memory. That's a good thing for me. Oh yeah.
That's an interesting, very interesting way to look into these things. Yeah, so I think for today we are coming to an end, and
Maybe one last question that probably Vidya has, Ketu.
yes. That's what. Yeah. So, is there any option to get an instant help from Rex if any customer feel any issue during searching for analyzing literatures like instant chatting, etc. Maybe AI based. And let me answer this to Vidya. Vidya, we do that on our Discord channel. So if you join us on Discord channel, that's where we like actual three of us would answer your questions if you have any.
Yeah,
Okay, and
immediately.
that's a chat-based system complete. And yeah, we'll be.
Ketul,
Yeah, sure.
sorry to interrupt, but I think um, what Vidyasagar has asked is something also relatable, applicable on the product itself.
Yeah,
Like, and that's what I think
that's a
the
good
ultimate
idea
goal
here.
is, right? That's what the ultimate
Yeah,
goal is.
right.
You
Right.
ask something to the Rex, and Rex is kind of like
Right. That
does all
is
the work.
where we are heading. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Vidyasagar, if we are successfully on this track, maybe next year on a Saturday with Sourish, we
Yeah,
would
which
be
chatting with the
early
expert probably.
yes. So keep
So I can
keep
take some break. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be very very fun actually.
yeah.
All right, so we are coming to an end, and yeah, so it's a very interesting session. I think we talked about a
Yeah.
lot of our previous experiences and some setbacks, and if I have to ask you the one last question for tonight, you know, what do you see Rax's future? Okay, Shreyas has just given a glimpse that maybe next time on Saturday Stories we have a Rax bot to talk about. But apart from that, what is the future for the Rax and for the community who
Okay.
we are serving?
Yeah. So the way I look into racks, if nature wants racks to be what I want racks to be, then the way it would be that it's not just going to be a web platform or website or a platform where people would. The way I look into it is should be like Jarvis. If somebody has already watched Iron Man, if they have not yet watched Iron Man, please go and watch Iron Man, the movie Iron Man. So there's this Jarvis. So essentially, what it means is that you should have this small little cute robot with you, with whom who you carry that robot all everywhere, conferences, workshops, seminars, while you are discussing something with your supervisor, with your friends, with your colleagues, in a cafe, and this kind of becomes your intellectual partner, and it actually keeps giving you new kind of directions, new ideas, new ways of thinking things, and also contributing in the conversation that you are having with people. So that's kind of like the crazy thing that I am after, essentially. So and not just in intellectual partner, but also in terms of your emotional partner as well, because research can many times become very stressful. So there has to be a support, an emotional support that
Right.
should come. So essentially, a much more immersive experience, not just a SaaS platform, productivity platform, but also encompassing you and for being with you all the time. So that is, what I look at
Right.
when it comes to RAGs. And to the ultimate motto, my motto is essentially to make research fun. Because, the moment research starts becoming fun, then what happens? You are a lot more motivated to do what you want to do.
Right.
You're a lot more connected to the impact that can happen through your research. So automatically your quality of research goes up because you are actually doing research for the right reasons, right? For the right motivations. And automatically what happens is the world becomes a much better world.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
so that is the thing.
I'm interested if I ask you,
Yeah,
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 the same question.
yeah. So, like sorry, sir, just described is kind of a dream for I think the entire team, and he has portrayed that very well. So, but a personal and a crazy aspect to the future of Rex would be for me to kind of get into their workplace, kind of physically be with the user, and the interface is kind of so maybe it's in your drawer or on the desk that you study, something like that. It's in your smartphone, and it's more about helping you to manage information well, because
Right.
there is this constant like inflow from everywhere. And uh, it would be just amazing that if that experience of managing the information and connecting the dots is more natural, out of the screen kind of. And
Right.
there is a physical aspect to this entire experience, like how the 3D gaming or kind of the immersive gaming is changing. Like
Right.
you can get that aspect into research workflow. That would
Right.
be super fun and speed kind of
Right.
working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. I think it's time we say goodbye to our audience for tonight. And
Yeah.
yeah, thanks everyone for joining, despite being Diwali in
Yes.
India. Vidyasagar, Rujal, then we have Aradhana, Leena. All of them have joined us for this complete session.
Yeah.
So big thank you to you guys, and we loved your ideas. Like Vidyasagar said, can it be an AI sort of chatting bot to help with the literature analysis? That's a complete feature idea that we have right
Yeah.
now. So join us on Discord. I've shared the link in the chat, and there we can have more fun and lively discussions. And you can share your ideas, the crazy ones which you just might have thought, and that makes not sense right now, but definitely will, you can discuss out with us. So thank you everyone for joining,
Thank
and
you.
I
You guys, and
say,
very happy Diwali to
yeah,
Yeah. Very
everyone
happy Diwali to
watching this.
everyone,
Yeah.
and stay absolutely safe.
Yeah. Thank
goodbye
Bye
you.
guys.
bye. Bye.